What it do? Dream Team, it's your boy D Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with the gun solution. We're not talking about, I think in a lot of videos, I watch a lot of videos where we talk about kind of the problems in America and less videos on solutions to those problems. So I'm like, let's watch a video that may give us a solution to these problems. But before we jump into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Social media and Patreon, all up top. You can subscribe to any of that. Put all the links in the description. All you gotta do is hit the link, follow me, talk to me. Human, I talk back. And if you guys got a favorite video suggestion, you can subscribe to Patreon or in the description there's a Google form link. What we got, Vox?
Every time there's another mass shooting in America, politicians have the same idea.
It's time to require a background check for anyone who wants to buy a gun.
I'm one of the Republicans who does believe there should be background checks.
It is an open secret that the existing background check system is broken.
Oh, I have an appetite for background checks. We're going to be doing background checks.
Here's what they want to change. Right now,
How is all these politicians they're just saying this, man? That's what's frustrating, because how so many of them talked about these background checks. You got presidents talking about these background checks, yet we still don't have them. Or we may have them at gun stores, but we don't have them everywhere that you're able to purchase a gun.
For background checks, we're going to be doing background checks.
here's what they want to change. Right now, gun buyers in the US only have to go through a background check at a gun store. But they don't have to go through one if they buy a gun from an unlicensed dealer, like at a gun show or...
How does that make sense? How does that... Okay.
But they don't have to go through one if they buy a gun from an unlicensed dealer, like at a gun show or a private sale. But with universal background checks, everyone who buys a gun would have to go through one. Pretty much every American is in favor of this. There's only one problem. Universal background checks won't solve America's gun crisis, but there's something else that might.
I think it would help.
To understand how background checks work, it helps to imagine two very different people who both want to buy a gun. The first person is dangerous. Maybe he has a history of domestic violence or mental illness. And most importantly, he has a record. And the second one is not dangerous. He just wants a gun for protection or to go hunting or 'cause shooting guns is kind of fun. Before either one can buy a gun, they first have to go through an FBI instant background check. And I mean instant. It only takes an average of 108 seconds to get a response from the FBI's database. That database is made up of records sent in by state police and other agencies. And it's checked to see if the buyer has things like a criminal record, addiction, a restraining order, or has been hospitalized for a mental illness. Under a universal background check system, anyone buying a gun, whether in a gun store or through a private sale, would have to be checked through that database. That means our second person walks out with a gun, and our first person with a criminal record doesn't. Or at least he shouldn't.
I've done a lot of reporting on this. We have just seen time and time again that background checks do not stop people who we don't want having guns from actually getting the weapons.
There are a couple problems with the background check system. One is that the FBI database is about as outdated as its logo. It's missing millions of records. That's why the Charleston church shooter was able to buy a gun, despite having a record. Or why the man who killed 26 Texan churchgoers was also able to pass a background check, after the Air Force failed to send his domestic abuse convictions to the FBI. So even with a background check for every type of sale, there's still a chance this guy gets a gun.
Could they not just update the system though? I guess if they made that a law where there was universal background checks, could you not just update the system? And I understand even in the most perfect systems, you're gonna have some people slip through the cracks, but I feel like it would help. In my opinion, I think it would help a lot more if there was universal background checks than without, because right now we're without them, and you see.
Background check for every type of sale, there's still a chance this guy gets a gun. That's partly why study after study has found that while background checks prevent or make substantially more difficult the criminal acquisition of firearms, making them universal doesn't have any effect on the actual gun crisis in America, gun deaths. A Johns Hopkins study of California, where comprehensive background checks were implemented in 1991, found that the law was not associated with changes in firearm suicide or homicide. thanks in part to those incomplete and missing records. The other problem with background checks is that they only look at good people and already bad people, but there is an in-between.
The background checks are supposed to catch people who have a record already. It just misses all the people who haven't done anything bad yet, but might do something bad in the future.
I do agree with that. I do agree with that because I feel like a lot of the people that do some of these mass shootings, and I'm not saying all, but a good amount of them like hadn't done anything bad yet, but then I don't know what happens, they snap or whatever, and then you know what I'm saying. So I don't like saying like because it could be a good person that just snapped, and you know what I'm saying, and so I do understand what
I haven't done anything bad yet, but might do something bad in the future.
Herman is not advocating for a Minority Report situation. He's talking about someone like this guy, who's also dangerous, but who doesn't have a record. Under a universal background check system, he could get a gun in 108 seconds. But there's another system that could prevent this. 12 states in DC have gone one step further and established a licensing system. How's it different? Well, here's how it works in Massachusetts. Before you ever go to a gun store, you first have to take a firearm safety course. Then you have to go to the police department and submit an application, give references, and give your fingerprints for a background check. Then not only is the FBI database checked, but all local law enforcement agencies, wherever you've lived, are directly contacted, along with the Department of Mental Health. That entire process in Massachusetts usually takes about 3 weeks. And most people, about 97%, pass.
Nothing about a licensing system will prevent a law-abiding citizen from going through the process and obtaining a firearm.
That's Dr. Cassandra Kerfasi. She researches...
Yeah, I like that system. I like that. Yes. Bro, come on. We got the solutions. We got the solutions.
And obtaining a firearm.
That's Dr. Cassandra Kerfasi. She researches health policy at Johns Hopkins, and she's one of the authors from the studies earlier. She says the reason licensing works is that it's designed to do both of the big things background checks fail at.
A, to properly identify and screen out people who shouldn't have guns. And B, create a system to reduce impulsive gun purchases.
The licensing system is more comprehensive than the one database background check system, so our criminal will be reliably denied a gun. But because it's so meticulous, it also stands a chance of keeping our third guy without a record from getting a gun.
There are people who may want to impulsively acquire a firearm, for example, to harm themselves or others. And the process of obtaining a license can at least delay that person during that time of crisis, or, maybe deter them from getting that firearm at all.
In 1995, Connecticut implemented a licensing system. Over the next 10 years, they saw a drop in gun homicides and gun suicides. Compare that to Missouri, which once had a licensing system but got rid of it in 2007. Over the next decade, they had a huge spike in gun homicides and gun suicides. In both states, there were lots of factors involved, but researchers say this shows that licensing works. It's also pretty popular. Among voters who live in a house with a gun, more than 2/3 think that it's a good idea. Ask all Americans, and more than 3/4 support it. Background checks are supposed to stop bad people from getting guns, but they often don't. Licensing picks up that slack.
By making sure that people are crossing these hurdles, we just make sure in a much better, stronger way that people are not getting firearms when they shouldn't have them.
Bro, yes, I completely agree with the licensing system, bro. That's what I'm saying. Because I was all on universal background checks, but then this licensing system covers a lot of gaps that universal background checks would still leave. And I think, that licensing system would be, and I'm not saying it would stop all crime because you're never going to have a system that literally stops all crime. I'm not saying it's going to keep guns out of the hands of everybody who doesn't pass it, you know what I'm saying, or guns out of the hands of all criminals. It won't. But you saw the charts. You saw that with the licensing system, the numbers were on a downward spiral. Without it, they went on an upward spiral. And so, charts didn't lie. That's all we got for this one. If you guys got a favorite video you want to see me react to, you can subscribe to Patreon, or in the description section there's a Google form link. Hit the link, fill out your suggestions, send it to me. One we get yours faster, others fill out premium. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, give the video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Social media and Patreon all up top. You can subscribe to any of it. Put all the links in the description. All you gotta do is hit the link, follow me, talk to me. Love talking to you guys. You guys are the most incredible team on YouTube. It's your boy D Neal, out.